to be inspiring. They have to get people off their butts. We ought to have the same thing when we're making our plans. Don't do little things. Little things don't get you out of bed in the morning. Go after big things, exciting stuff, stuff that gets you noticed, stuff that's compelling for you, stuff you're interested in. Go after the contributions and the gap closure that really makes a difference to you and to the people that you care about. Okay? One of the things you've got to do as you're doing this planning is you got to choose your strategy. And strategy is really about the unique to you and to your team and to your organization, the unique things that you have to do to differentiate yourself, to create value. Remember, the mission is you got to create value. You got to figure out what's the value you're supposed to add. There's some needs that you have to meet. And if you fail to meet those needs, you're going to go out of business, right? So this is part of where you're thinking, you got to pick a path. You got to pick a horse and ride it. You got to choose your strategy. It's got to be unique to you. Because if your product or your service is the same as what everybody else is doing, why are they going to buy from you? The essence of strategy is choice. How will you add value that other people will pay for? Now, does that have relevance in a business that's doing a product or service, right? They got to differentiate themselves, got to add value in a unique way. They have to have a value proposition that other people will pay for. Now, what about a team in an organization? Does a marketing department have to create value in a unique way? Yeah, they do stuff different than sales. They do stuff different than R&D. They have to have some way to add value. And what happens to a training department or a marketing department that fails to deliver results, that fails to win? Yeah, and then what happens? You start losing your job, right? Because you fail to add value, what happens? You cease to exist. Okay, so those departments go away. Their leaders go away, right? So would this have relevance in life? As an individual, do you need to choose a strategy for the way that you're going to add value? Yeah, all of you guys are part of classrooms, right? Are you a leader in your classroom? Did somebody vote you to be a leader? Do they have to? Yeah, leadership's a choice, not a position. It's not a name on a card on a door. Okay, it's a choice. And you can go to a class, any class you're in, you can choose to be a leader, and you can choose to have a strategy for having an impact in that class. So this has relevance in every aspect of life. Another thought is we got to clarify our focus. So we got to figure out the strategy, but the strategy's got to be focused. We got to figure out what are we going to do to win. What is the clear path? This is a quote from DNA Leadership that I think is pretty important. Firmly established goals are important because they create a magnetic-like attraction. They attract us. And why does a goal need to attract us? Why do we need to be attracted? Okay, because motivation. And if we're not attracted to the goal, if we're not attracted to do something that takes our performance to the next level, what are we attracted to? Okay, laying in bed, that's a good one. Playing video games, that's a problem for some people. Text messaging, mindless just activities, just getting by. How many people just get by?
It's natural for the path of least resistance.
That's it. Natural to go on the path of least resistance. So that path, there's a magnetic pull to go down the path of least resistance, isn't there? It's a natural magnetic pull. It's not bad. That's a characteristic of human beings. We want to do as little as we can to get what we want, and we're pretty good at it. But that's just managing the day-to-day. If we really want to really accomplish cool things, really make a difference in the world, then we got to have goals and put some other attraction that will capture some of our time and our attention and our resources to those things, or we're just going to be sucked down the path of least resistance. And what do you get when you go down the path of least resistance? You might get something. You might get mediocrity. How many people are looking for mediocre managers? How many people are looking to buy mediocre products and services? How many of you want to be a mediocre husband, father, brother, sister, wife, mother, neighbor, church member? I don't think any of us are striving for mediocrity. So if we want to be great at something, we've got to put these attractants out that help move us in the right direction. And goals are one of the things that do that. This idea of focus is not just me talking about focus. This is a lot of business thinkers are realizing how important it is to focus. I actually had, a couple years ago, a business leader told me, Cindrich, you just don't get it. I'm running a complex, multi-million-dollar international business here, and you tell me I can only have a couple of goals for my business? You just don't get it. I mean, I got 16 goals I'm reporting to the board on every single quarter. So focus, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And what he didn't realize is he was going to the board every quarter and he was reporting mediocrity on all 16 of his goals. I finally said, hey, Bob, when are you going to get interested in reporting that you're knocking it out of the park on a couple of things? Ooh, that sounded a little bit more compelling than going to the board and saying, yeah, I'm not doing anything well. So the idea gets reinforced by Ram Charan in his book Execution, and he says leaders who execute focus on a very few clear priorities. They're so crystal clear that everybody gets it. From the mailroom clerk to the CEO, we all get it. That's how clear they need to be. You look at a book called What Really Works. They looked at 200 management practices to figure out what consistently helped the organizations that are winning win. And what they found is that the winners pursued very clear and narrowly focused growth strategies. They're not all over the place. They talked about losers that couldn't figure out what they were. You got like a Kmart, right? Kmart declares bankruptcy. Why did they declare bankruptcy? Because they weren't sure who they were. They were Kmart, then they were trying to be Walmart, then they were trying to be Target. They couldn't do any of that well, so they did none of it well. They ended up going bankrupt. And they're trying to pull out of it now. But a lot of companies and organizations that are unsuccessful, they struggle because their strategy is not focused. You can't have a strategy to do everything, right? Love this one, Yu Tang. He's a Chinese philosopher. He takes another angle at it, the other idea of focus. Besides the noble art of getting things done, there's the noble art of leaving things undone. The wisdom in life consists in the elimination of those things that are non-essential. How good are we in the day-to-day about making the decisions to not do things that don't add value? So many of us waste so much time doing stuff that just flat doesn't matter. And when we do that, because we have limited resources, we have limited time, we spread that time and limited resources across things that don't really matter. And what we find is that we leave the things that really do count undone, right? So here's another idea. You guys are familiar with a company called Apple, right? How many of you have one of their products on your person right now? Yeah, interesting. I've got 2 of them in my laptop, or my briefcase. I mean, this is really interesting. This is a company that really has it figured out. They did an interview with Fortune a couple years ago, and this is their CEO, Tim Cook, talking. He said, at Apple, there's no such thing as hedging your bets. One traditional management philosophy that's taught in many business schools is diversification. You go to business school, they actually teach you a philosophy that can lead to your demise. They said, well, that's not us. Apple's philosophy goes like this. Too many companies spread themselves thin, making a profusion of products to diffuse risk, so they get mired in the mediocre. And Apple's approach is to put every resource it has behind just a few products and make them exceedingly well. How many times does Apple blow it when they release a product? Man, just not that often. And if they blow it, it's only because they were early, right? I mean, they got it nailed, right? How many of you are going to buy an iPad? Be honest. Okay. That's.
They don't know it. I think you're saying iPod, but they don't know about the new pad.
Oh, do you guys know about? How many of you heard about the iPad? They know.
Okay.
Bruce, are you kidding? They don't know. They watched it live, right? All right. Here's Jobs goes on. He says, people think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to 100 other good ideas. Okay, that's the problem. And you have to choose really, really carefully, he's saying. There are so many good things that we can do. All of us can do lots and lots of good things. And the reality is, all those good things are the enemy of great. Because if you try to do every good thing that's possible, you'll do none of those things well enough to have an impact. It's like trying to boil the ocean. You can't boil the ocean. You got only 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to get stuff done. And if you spread that time and your money and your mind share across 50 good